Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Get 2 times membership rewards points per dollar on eligible purchases in key business categories, as well as on each eligible purchase of $5,000 or more, on up to $2 million in eligible purchases per calendar year. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Disney Plus wants to know, are you ready? For Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, now streaming on Disney Plus.
Let's do this.
One of the best Marvel movies of all time is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Hey, you weren't listening to me.
I said Thunderbolts, The New Avengers is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Meet the New Avengers.
That's cool name.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, rated PG-13, now streaming on, you guessed it, Disney Plus.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Hello and welcome to the Cardiff Central podcast. It's delirium in the capital as the Blue and Black sit second in the United Rugby Championship after a Maul men-inspired bonus point win away at Zebre. We'll be discussing whether this Cardiff team are the best in the world at the moment, should David Hughes have toured with the Lions, and whether we're now actually better than Wales after the weekend. Plus there's club birthdays, more rag struggles, and European fever hits the pod. Joining me on the panel this week, got Fraser Stroud. Fraser, how are you?
Yeah, good. Glad to be talking about a winning team. It's a soothing balm after the autumn, to be fair.
Very much so. Steve Coombs. Steve, how are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks.
And Andrew Ford. Fordy, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate.
Good stuff. All right, we'll crack straight into Saturday's main game of the day, of course, the 1 o'clock kickoff as Zebre hosted Cardiff out in Palma. It was the weather forecast was correct on the pod last week. I'm going to start with that I'm now officially like a top weather guy on a cold but bright day at the Stadio Sergio Lanfranchi. Cardiff started a little bit slowly, but finally took the game by the scruff of the neck. The first half hat-trick for David Hughes at the back of a dominant Maul gave us a 21-7 lead. Zebre came back into it a bit in the second half, but Cardiff held strong despite Zebre scoring a try in the last 10 minutes as Cardiff went up the other end and secured the bonus point with the last play of the game with Tame Basham going over for the score. As I mentioned in the intro, Cardiff now sits second after that, although Ulster do have a game in hand, but obviously we'll batter them at the end of January, so it doesn't matter anyway. A couple of three-word thoughts on social media after the game. Robert said, against the odds. Paul went with never in doubt. Ben said, best Welsh region. Rob, found a way. Matthew, never say die. Paul said, here for it. Joe went with another ugly win, and Tom went with extremely important win. Fraser, coming to you first. What were your general thoughts on Saturday's game?
I think as a spectacle, it wasn't a great game in terms of quality. I think it was a pretty, both teams were a bit off their game. I mean, understandably, we had our second string out to a degree. And I think Zebre were error-strewn throughout. They, whenever they got an opportunity to kind of build momentum, they knock it on. I mean, sometimes unforced, but also, going back to us, our defence was quality throughout. I think it was a solid performance. We obviously got the 5 points, which was amazing, away from home. I think our set piece and forwards performed really well. Our scrum was solid. Obviously, our maul was great. Getting that hat trick for Dav Hughes, could have got a couple more in that maul. I think it's just really nice to see a team that clearly knows what they're doing. It feels like Cardiff have got a clear idea of wherever they are in the park, they've got something they want to try, and then if it doesn't work, they've got the alternative, and it's quite comforting to watch. I'm just watching a team and I feel quite calm and confident that they know what they're doing, and I think it's reflected in the way the players perform. I thought overall I think our defence was excellent as well, and to get a win away from home in Zebre. I mean, Zebre have been mixed, but they can be an excellent team. And I think it just shows how we progressed this last season with like a second string team or a weaker team going to Italy and getting the 5 points kind of backs against the wall to a degree in the second half they came back into it, but we just showed that calmness, confidence. Our defense was excellent and yeah, got over the line and got those bonus points. So I was delighted by the result, yeah.
Steve?
Really pleasing result. It was more comfortable than I was expecting. To be honest, I was kind of getting ready to get quite annoyed about this game because of it being actually a pretty important game in the context of the season and with the players then being away with Wales. But when I saw the team and I thought, if I can get a result, but I was expecting it to be quite tight. In the end, I thought we probably could have won it more comfortably, which surprised me. I thought Aled Davis would have been my personal man of the match. I think that's possibly the first game where we really dominated in the air. I think there was one kick he put out on the full, but otherwise he was just dropping bombs exactly where they needed to be all game. And that played a big part in that win. So backline seems to be slightly off the boil, isn't quite linking together as you'd like, but no, really, really pleasing win.
Yeah, Panny, the fullback, was usually quite good
Yeah,
against us.
I was
Like,
surprised by Zebre in general, actually, because when I've seen them, they look pretty dangerous. And I think I was worried about, we're obviously going to kick a lot, and Zebra's game tends to be, based around running back, from transition, etc. Pani was pretty poor. Trula, who's their other really dangerous back three player, he didn't play, which is probably in our favour. But I don't know. It might be that Zebre are the type of team who kind of thrive on being the underdog, and when suddenly they're favourite, and they were bookies' favourite for this game, when they're favourite, they don't quite know how to deal with it. But yeah, they were disappointing, I thought.
Fordy, your thoughts?
Yeah, just overall quite happy. Historically, I don't think we've beaten Zebre away by like a margin of that much for a very, very long time. It's often a fixture away that we've struggled against. I think in the second half we were a little bit under the pump. It'd have been interesting to see what the territory was in the second half, but kind of held very firm. And at the end, when Basham got that fourth try, it was an element of relief that we got that bonus point at the end because I think we deserved it and probably left a couple of tries out there. So yeah, just delighted really. Bonus point win and good little bit of consistency from the first block and hopefully take something positive into Europe.
Absolutely. Fraser, thought you mentioned there the defence in the second half. There was a three-word thought from Gareth, which was defence wins championships. And Charlie Hunt on Twitter sent me an interesting stat after the game. We're making a bit of a habit of going long periods in games without conceding any points, a sign of good defence and discipline. Against Lions, 32 minutes, Munster, 28 minutes, Connacht 71 minutes, Dragons 64 minutes, Edinburgh 61 minutes, and then Zebre 43 minutes. Is this defence as good as we've seen at least in modern times?
I mean, I can't really argue with that, to be fair. I think it is. It's just really impressive. I think kind of referencing discipline, I think that's crucial, is that we allow the other team to have the ball and we're strong in the tackle and we just kind of cover the spaces and then we are really disciplined. We don't tend to give away penalties, which obviously would be the kind of thing that if a team has possession, we keep giving away penalties, they get on top and they get more territory. But we just seem to kind of soak up pressure, really strong in the tackle, and just seem again really calm under pressure and not flustered by a team maybe like gaining momentum. I think there's a couple of times Zebre were kind of got into our 22 and looking really good, and we didn't panic and give away a offside penalty or try and do a turnover when it wasn't on. I think it's just that calmness that we react to the situation and don't make any silly errors. I think that's really crucial. It's that lack of penalty or free kick count or whatever just enables us to keep defending and we know what we're doing. We've got good structure and it is really impressive and clearly is a massive part in us continuing to win and hold teams off for such long periods of time.
Steve, a couple of other three-word thoughts. Rob said mauling tri-fest. Sean said Maul men again. The Maul men thing is because it was a bit of a gimmick over the years because it only sort of reared its head like once a season. We just absolutely maul somebody, but like, is it not a gimmick anymore? We are just the full-time Maul men now.
Well, I mean, like you came up with more man originally, didn't you? And like you were obviously being quite tongue in cheek because we never ever scored tries from rolling balls. I remember a couple of years ago when Christian Dacey was being praised for the number of tries he was getting, and you'd have Irish fans say, "Well, the hooker always scores tries." But, well, yeah, they might do it at a team that scores tries from rolling balls. Cardiff. But now, no, I think it's a legit weapon. And you think back to the end of last season. I mean, we got a penalty try from a line-out drive against Munster. We won and got a bonus point against Ospreys with a line-out drive. Um, and we won on Saturday with a series of line-out drives. So it's all part and parcel of Cornel Van Zyl arguably being the signing of last season. He's really transformed the forward efforts, particularly in that way. So yeah, we're a legit more threat now, which is a very weird thing to say, but yeah.
Yes, it still feels like every time we go to the corners, there's like the nervousness of firstly, will we win the line out? And then secondly, will we actually do anything with it? But maybe we should just all relax a bit more.
Well, we tried to be a bit too clever at one point, didn't we? And no, we won't go for them all this time. What we'll do is we'll give it to Steph Emmanuel on a crash ball, the smallest guy in the back line. I don't understand the thinking there. But yeah, the Maul is working, and yeah, praise be.
4D, Gareth, three-word thoughts went with squad depth building. Craig on Reddit said, considering the numbers missing on the weekend and the result that the team pulled out, when was the last time we had a squad with this much depth? We're not littered with household names, but we have a lot of young talent who have a lot of room to improve. Is this one of the deeper squads we've had? And certainly when you look year on year from last year to this year, is there like noticeably better depth in this squad now?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was almost a collective panic before the game last week of what team can we pick for this game. And then when the team came out, I think everyone was kind of surprised about how strong the team looked, and that was despite missing so many players through injuries and through playing for Wales. So yeah, there's definitely a lot better depth, and I think a lot of people putting their arms up to kind of potentially push into that first team, and it's quite fitting going into Europe now, where I imagine we'll probably see a little bit of rotation to some degree, where there's a little bit more confidence if we're going for what's effectively a second choice player. And I think particularly, I thought George Knott put his hand up quite well. He had one of his better games on Saturday since he's come in. And obviously, we lost Teddy a few games ago, and it's kind of nice to see that we're not kind of settling. These players are putting their hands up, putting in shifts. But I do worry a little bit that there's like certain positions where we are probably like an injury away from a little bit of a crisis in that position. But yeah, overall, I think the depth in the squad's probably one of the best it's been for a long time.
I do wonder as well, like obviously we had Josh McNally on the other week, talked about how good the feeling is around the group at the moment, and the players wanting to take their chances. And there is a psychological thing, I think, for players around, you don't feel knocks as much when things are going well, and when there's competition for places, you do come back a bit quicker, which does just help in terms of not having that injury list building up, because you look at some teams towards the bottom of the list who always seem to have long injury records, and like, I wonder if there's some players there who know that they can get away with being injured for a week or two longer than they need to, because there's no rush to come back, really. We're going to lose anyway, and I'm not going to lose my place in the team. So I'm not suggesting players are obviously purposely getting injured, but I think for Cardiff, there's definitely an element of, you look at Harry Millard playing a couple of times in the last block, where I think he said in the press last week he had a dead back after the Munster game, and he still turned up the following week. Like, that's not somebody who wants to sit on the sideline. Somebody wants to be playing.
Yeah, he came back on at the end of the game, and I was like, "Why are you coming back on?" Like, wrapped his head, he had the blood pour.
Every time the camera panned to him at the end of the game, he had the blood injury, didn't he? And then at one point he had just like a load of Vaz or whatever on it, and then he had a big bandage on it, and then he had a scrum cap on it by the end. He was like adding more things to his head every time there was a stoppage in play. Fraser, obviously, Dav Hughes won man of the match on the back of his hat-trick performance. But his stats generally were excellent as well. 12 carries, 11 tackles, 94% line out completion. There was a couple of three-word thoughts. Steve said Dav Hughes again. Lloyd went with Dav Hughes boy. He really stepped up on Saturday in a time where we really needed him to put in that pretty much 80-minute performance as well.
Yeah, I think we've I don't know always kind of felt this slightly unfair that he's a third choice to a degree because he's always been good when he's played for us. I've always been impressed by how seamlessly he fits in. It doesn't seem to be a drop in standard. They're like three hookers. There is differences in quality, but like they're all kind of there or thereabouts. So it's felt a bit harsh on him to always be the third choice, but needs must. That's the situation. And yeah, I think again he showed, especially on the weekend, almost 80 minutes. Really quality line out throwing, keeping the possession when it's got his tries. Good around the field. I just there's nothing you can say. It was just an excellent performance, and I think that's again, I guess testament to our strength and depth that you can swap out Dav Hughes or Belcher for Hughes or Hughes for Evan Lloyd or anything, and you'll get the same consistency and quality of performance more or less. So I think it's good to see him get his a bit of time to shine and get the praise that he's probably deserved for a while, but hasn't had the chance to kind of showcase.
Absolutely. Steve, you mentioned that the backline didn't necessarily click as a unit, but there was a couple of individual performances which were encouraging there. I thought Harry Millard showed some different sides to his game on Saturday with a few sharp kicks in behind and a few defensive reads. How well do you think he did? And looking long term, after an autumn where nobody's really nailed down a spot in that Wales backline, 13 is still not a position of great depth in this country. Is there something that says if he has a really good run through this festive period, he could be a bolter for the Six Nations?
I think he probably could, mostly because, as you say, no one's really tied down many positions in the Wales side. But Harry Millard's past 2 years, 18 months have been absolutely astonishing. He's gone from being someone you thought was a squad player, might go into semi-pro rugby quite easily, to being a top try scorer in the league from the wing, to becoming incredibly. I mean, he's doing a Ray Lilo impression every week in the centre, isn't he? And he's doing that with a mountain of injuries. He's had so many injuries. He's creating new injuries no one's heard of before, like dead backs. He's an absolutely remarkable player for us at the moment, and if he does maintain this form over Christmas, New Year period where there are a lot of big games, I think he probably does come into it. And presumably you'll have Matt Sherratt speaking up for him regularly at team meetings. He's not certainty by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if he does get in, he will absolutely have earned it.
Good stuff. 4D, one three-word thought from JHM was just Cornel Van Zyl. We mentioned him earlier as the forwards coach, but Gareth on Twitter has asked a question. Once the ownership situation is in place, should we move as fast as possible to sign Van Zyl up on a longer-term deal? It's going to be very difficult to not appoint him a head coach at this point, isn't it? Is there a world where he doesn't get the job, do you think?
No, I don't think so. It was interesting hearing Josh McNally say on the pod when he was on that they were kind of aware of the whole situation with Jockey going to Wales a lot sooner than the kind of public were known as. We saw it as almost the eve of the season starting that he was gone. And you kind of worried a bit with Van Zyl stepping up, saying that he wanted to be a head coach. You're a bit like, how's this all going to work out? And then, rumours of potential head coaches being linked to the job. But yeah, I very much feel he's shown his worth very early on, and yeah, I'd love to keep him on going forward, and yeah, he's really continued kind of that team building from when Sherratt came in, kind of at short notice. Was it 2023? The kind of you worry that when he went that there'd be some sort of disruption, but it's almost he's continued building, and yeah, I'd definitely love to see him carry on as head coach going forward.
Good stuff. I think two other points just to pick up on from the game on Saturday. Andy Robnev on Reddit in what might become a weekly Point on the pod said, should we give Josh McNally a 3-year contract now? It's going up by year each week. He still says the answer is yes. I still think the answer would be yes if he wants it. Like, there'll always be that offer there. And also to congratulate Cornell Schmidt on his debut, but also Harry Wild and Johan Emmanuel as well. Particularly good day for Llantwit Vardra with both Emmanuel brothers, Harry Wild playing as well. It's great to see a club putting out so much good young talent and plenty more on the way. I'm sure. I think Reece Barrett might be Llantwit Vardra as well. The Barrett's Llantwit Vardra. I'm not sure. We'll give him to him. They can have him anyway. They've produced enough others. Anything from anyone else for the game on Saturday?
I thought Steph Emmanuel was pretty impressive, actually. I mean, mentioned the, I think, slightly misguided crash ball 5 meters out, but I thought he made some really good defensive reads. He looked very classy when he had the ball in his hands, and I think that's probably his best performance thus far, and gives a good hint of what he's capable of.
Yeah, I agree that the back line didn't click, but there was a little something in that Lloyd Emmanuel 10-12 combo where you thought, if we give them a bit of time together here, and that could be quite exciting. And obviously, Lloyd, who is the oldest 24-year-old I think that has ever been around for ages, but yeah, they've still got plenty of time to play together, and maybe we'll see them a bit more over the next few weeks as well as the squad chops and changes before settling down again for the festive derbies.
I was just going to also shout out Javan Sebastian because I think he was one of those players we've signed, and I was just like, I'm not really sure if he can do it, or like I'm a bit uncertain as to like how good he is, or like how capable he is. And I think he's done when he's come in. I've been quietly impressed with his like scrummage is pretty solid and just around the park. So I think I've been quite pleased with that as like a astute signing on our part to cover that tight head, which was definitely a position we kind of had some issues in last season. So I've been pleased with him, I think. I just wanted to shout him out.
Good stuff. Right, we shall move on to the news section. Not much news this week after a stacked one last week, catching up on plenty of stuff while we've been off. The major thing coming out of the club, you may have noticed on social media on Tuesday, was a number of images appearing of the original skull and crossbones that preceded a video put out by Cardiff Rugby and Cardiff RFC Twitter accounts with all the badges over the years and the shared history of the club. That is on the 149th birthday, as the 2nd of December is, of Cardiff Rugby Club, and obviously launches the 150th anniversary year. I think there'll be plenty of stuff to look out for that. The club obviously very keen to push that as a major achievement and a positive note in these times of uncertainty around Welsh rugby. So we shall keep an eye out on plenty of activities that will appear and pray for a jersey with that skull and crossbones on as well. I think that would sell very well if that were to come out. Some sad news, unfortunately, coming from Penarth. You may have seen on Monday morning images of the clubhouse at Penarth RFC, which I think they share with a couple of other sports there as well, having been hit by a fire which basically devastated the building. Relatively new clubhouse as well. I've chatted to somebody who's been there recently and said it was a very nice spot, which is no mention of foul play at this point, but obviously a lot of history lost from inside that. I think somebody mentioned there was a Springbok head awarded by the Springboks to the Barbarians, which is housed there. So stuff that can't be retrieved, unfortunately. They have launched a crowdfunder looking for about £10,000 to help get them back on their feet. We will link that in the description and the bio and stuff of this episode, so do go there and give if you're able to. But our thoughts with all at Penarth at this time, and I know the club reached out to help. Hopefully they can keep supporting them in the coming weeks and months. And then finally in the news, it's not really news because there's not actually like a news story attached to it. I wasn't going to mention the rumours that circulated on social media this week about Y11 and their bid or possible bid to purchase Cardiff Rugby out of the WRU ownership. The Ospreys owners, of course, Y11. But when we asked for questions, basically all of the questions were about what do we know, what do we think about Y11. I think just as a headline thing, they are rumours at the moment. There's no solid news to come out of it. The only actual piece of news is that the Wales Online reported that the deadline for bidding for Cardiff passed on Friday, just gone. it seems unlikely that WRU will have assessed all of the bids and made a final decision by the following Monday. Nothing happens that quickly in the WRU towers, but clearly there's no smoke without fire in terms of the Y11 perhaps being the preferred bidder. We discussed it on the pod last week with Lynn, if you want to go back and listen to that, about sort of general thoughts on ownership. But Steve, you were involved in writing that CF10 blog that went out. What are your sort of general thoughts on Y11 coming in and what that would mean for Ospreys, for Cardiff, and for Welsh Rugby?
I mean, it's hard to know where to begin, really. Okay, so first of all, the reason for including the Y11 rumor, like we can still call it a rumor because there's no official confirmation or denial that they have made a bid. The reason I thought it was important to include that on the blog and why I'm trying to point to it at social media is I don't hear a lot of rumors. I don't hear a lot of like secret gossip, but I did hear a couple of months ago from someone in a position to know that there were 6 interested parties in Cardiff Rugby Club. That's since been confirmed through Wales Online. And that 2 had since lost interest. That was a couple of months ago, and that Y11 and Martin Ryan's group were 2 of the 4. Don't know the other 2 parties involved. And we've had it today in Wales Online. They've confirmed that there were 4 bids, or at least 4 bids in Cardiff Rugby Club. So, although there's been no confirmation or denial, and I don't think you'd expect them to be, by a process of elimination, it seems highly likely to me that Y11 have made a bid. Can't say with certainty. It seems very probable to me. If that were to happen, I mean, the WRU themselves say they were looking for a long-term solution, not short-term stick-in plasters. I can't see a way where Y11 buying Cardiff is not a short-term solution, which is just going to set up a whole series of new problems. I can't see a long-term solution for Welsh Rugby that doesn't include Swansea. That just seems insane to me. I think if anyone's thinking that you can create a Cardiff Ospreys team that everyone will just merrily embrace, it's just not going to happen. I mean, I can't see Ospreys fans coming to watch a team in Cardiff. I can't see Cardiff fans being happy about it. It's not a good solution for the game, although you can see why it would be an easy way for the WRU to get to 3 teams. So, again, there's no official confirmation, no denial. CF10 have been in touch with Richard Collier Keywood. He replied to us and confirmed no decision made. They're still assessing bids. CF10 have also met with Scott Waddington, who publicly has been fairly quiet. It's been made clear to him that we'd be pretty unhappy with the Y11 bids, to say the least. So for the time being, keep an eye on it because we don't really know anything yet. But in my mind, it's a real threat, not just speculation, and something to be concerned about because I think it would be the worst of all possible worlds.
Yeah, it sounds somewhat conspiracy theory is to say, oh, the WRU will just go for that because it eradicates their problems. It's actually true though. Like that is the simplest way for them to reach 3 teams is for Y11 to purchase Cardiff and for there to be some sort of either Ospreys closing down or some sort of merger, and they avoid what would probably be quite a substantial amount of legal challenges to any sort of tender process that happen and avoid that tender process as well. Obviously, there would be kickback from Cardiff fans, but they might feel that even a massively vociferous response from the majority of Cardiff fans is not as much trouble to them as the threat of legal action and a long form, a tender approach. So yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. And yeah, there's, as I mentioned, there's no smoke without fire in a lot of these things that people do talk Welsh Rugby. It doesn't have the 6 degrees of separation. It's very much 2 degrees of separation in Welsh Rugby. So yeah, it'll be one to keep an eye on. But we won't broach rumours every week. But it was just because it's obviously quite fresh this week, and there was a mountain of questions about it. We will hopefully just be able to enjoy the rugby.
The other thing I'd add is from a CF10 point of view, when we know more about the bids of who may or may not be taken over, we definitely look to include the wider membership in any discussion over that.
Good stuff. Right. I think that covers that off for this week at least until the next rumour comes up next week. We'll go to Rags Corner briefly. Not very happy Rags Corner this week, unfortunately. 21-24 loss against Swansea on Friday night at the Arms Park. Which looks even worse when you find out that Cardiff are 21-7 up with 10 minutes to go and Swansea scored a bunch of unanswered points. It was 2 tries for Alan Rees, a try for Ethan Lloyd, and 6 points for Stefan Crimp. They got Cardiff's point, but just a weird team this season, the Rags, who, when they click, they look great and like league leaders, and when it doesn't go well, they look like they've never met each other before and are just sort of running aimlessly around a park. So worrying as well to see Lloyd Lucas go off quite early on in that game on Friday. Hopefully it's not too serious of a knock that he picked up. The Fishies men are back in action on Saturday at home to RGC, 2:30 kickoff at the Arms Park. Get down for that one if you can. Slight overlap with the Stade Francais game, but you should be able to catch most of the Rags game after that. And they really need a big win there going into a major festive period, obviously with the dangling trophy of maybe playing in the URC next season, according to Wales Online as well, if they were to win the SRC. So that would be quite something. We'll touch on Wales as well, who had a record-breaking in many, many respects 73-0 defeat against South Africa on Saturday afternoon. It brings an end to the Autumn Nation Series, 1 win, 3 losses. Fraser, just sort of generally, any thoughts on the performances, whether there was any progression or identity, anything to cling to really for Wales?
I think there were like hints of jockeys like attacking game plan in the games against Argentina and New Zealand, less so against Japan, and less said about South Africa, the better. But yeah, so there were like kind of hints at it, and there was some periods of good play, and I think using the forwards in the attacking gameplay was working to a degree. We scored some good points. We were quite clinical in 22. But yeah, I think there's a lot. Obviously, there's huge amounts to improve on. I think it was one as a Cardiff fan. I think Azza he's basically. I feel like he's cemented himself as the starting tight head, which is really nice because I think he's been much maligned and people have often dismissed him as like, why is he in the Wales team? And I think he really showed to people why he is there and why he is capable and can play at that level. So that was really happy. I was happy about that, and I think obviously Man was excellent. I think he was like player of the series, I guess, for Wales, and he just has the ability to antagonise people without really knowing what he's done. He's just he's done something that the referee can't see that makes people fucking angry. so he gets absolutely, that tackle against Japan. Why did that happen? I have no idea, but he got absolutely smashed, and obviously this Eben Etzebeth in like the 79th minute, which is bizarre. And in a way, it kind of like came out positive after that game. I was like, all right, I don't feel too bad because it got someone sent off. I think the crowd actually, one thing, I think the crowd were genuinely behind Wales, which is, it hadn't, I think I went to the last Autumn Series, there was a real kind of sadness around the game when I went to see, I think I watched the Fiji match, and it was just kind of, people were just like, it just felt bad. But I went to the Argentina game, and then just generally, like in the South Africa game, the crowd seemed to be behind Wales when we almost scored a try, towards the end of the game when it was dead. There was that passion was there. So I think that was nice to see.
Fordy, your general Wales thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Fraser. It was the attack seemed a little bit improved. Some good tries, particularly against the All Blacks. But yeah, the game against South Africa, I'll be completely honest, I didn't really watch the game. I was on enough of a high after the Cardiff game that I didn't want to put myself through kind of watching the full game. I went to a pub and the pub was busy. So I was like, I'm not that bothered about standing up and watching it. Caught a bit of the second half, but obviously, there weren't many redeeming features of the game. And I have no desire to rewatch it. But I think, going forward, there's a huge worry in terms of kind of the defence, particularly when Tandy's a specialist defence coach. And there really needs to be a move forward of getting permanent coaches involved other than, obviously, you've just got Danny Wilson and Matt Sherratt at the moment. There needs to be more coaches full-time coaches. You can't just be relying on, like, no disrespect to the likes of Dan Lydiate, Reece Patchell, and Duncan Jones, but you can't be relying on people like that, particularly Lydiate and Patchell, who are so inexperienced and new to their coaching career. There needs to be something more experienced in place come the Six Nations.
Steve, I don't know if you've got anything to add to the desperate attempts, fair play to Forney and Fraser, to find something.
We'll run with Alex Mann and you find out. That's the big positive I took from that game. I mean, I did watch it. I watched it in the kind of, like Fordy, I was pretty pleased after the Cardiff game and didn't want to be brought down, but I did kind of watch it in a kind of stupor of, this is how this was always going to go, wasn't it? And yeah, I think Fordy's right about the coaching side. I mean, Steve Tandy's obviously a defence specialist and you'd expect him to take the lead on that, but can you really have an international rugby team in 2025-26 who doesn't have a full-time permanent defence coach? Can you really mix that with being the head coach? You feel like there has to be a change there, don't you? I mean, there have to be quite a few other changes, but that would be a place to start.
Yeah, I do. I have enjoyed Alex Mann sort of getting the entirety of South African rugby Twitter on strings, basically, in the last few days.
Oh, God. Can you imagine the next time he plays against a South African team at any level? They're going to be absolutely gunning for him. It's tremendous.
I mean, even Brian Habana has shared a photo, which, I mean, it must be clearly Photoshopped. The hand is a totally different colour, and his little finger is dislocated in it to actually get near Etzebet's eye, supposedly. It's very bizarre, though, that Etzebet has reacted in such an over-the-top way to seemingly very little provocation from Man. Maybe just his general aura rubs people up the wrong way now. He's developing that in the game. But it was a particularly vicious eye gouge, which, does not have any place in the game. We'll wait to see what ban that gets. But
it was kind of good because it distracted from like the headlines were all about the eye gouge as opposed to record defeat. So it really did hide the reality of that match for sure. So I guess thank you, Eben Etzebeth, I suppose. But, yeah.
Very, very bizarre. But Wales now obviously off until the Six Nations. It Blues home in the Six Nations this year, which maybe gives a little bit of hope they might be able to turn some results out against Italy and a Scottish side, which it's still got its golden generation, but is also in free fall at the same time. Very, very bizarre Scottish team that's going around at the moment, but hopefully there'll be a bit of better news on the fitness front as well as we approach Six Nations. There's a few key players we're missing for this autumn. We'll finish then on the pod this week by looking ahead to Cardiff's European Challenge Cup campaign. We, of course, are in a pool with Stade Francais, Ulster, Racing 92, Exeter and Cheetahs. We don't play the Cheetahs, cruelly robbed of a trip to Amsterdam for another year. We start on Saturday against Stade Francais in Paris. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff UK time, live on S4C. Stade Francais are having a very good season, first properly good season for them for a little while. They've won 6, lost 5 to sit 4th in the top 14 at this point. Since the autumn finished for France, they have beaten Toulon 51-24 at home and then narrowly lost 36-32 away at Clermont on the weekend. A pretty decent result going to Clermont. I think they also managed to get in Ronan O'Gara's heads quite a lot because... that's La Rochelle, isn't it, Ronan O'Gara? But I just wanted to bring up the fact that he got himself sent off by screaming at the ref on the touchline. Stade Francais have not really added many players looking at their transfers over the summer. It's a fairly settled squad. They have brought in Tawera Kerbalo, the experienced New Zealand scrum half, but they've still got plenty of quality there. Sekou Makalu, Johan Tango in the back row have been there a long time. Joe Marchant's doing very well, the former English centre in midfield there. And Leo Barre is a talented young fullback who obviously just can't get a game because Tomo Ramos is excellent, which is unfortunate for him that he's alive at the same time. But I suppose the question mark will be how seriously they take it, as always, with French teams in this second-tier competition. Leaving that aside for a moment, though, Fraser, obviously a lot of the questions about this weekend sort of centred on one thing. Just how do we approach the Challenge Cup? I suppose... bearing in mind that we want to challenge for the league still, but this is also an opportunity to potentially progress to a home knockout and win a trophy. But then also there's three festive derbies on the way, which everybody can't play every week. What do you think? I suppose what do you think Cornel van Zyl might do, and what maybe would you do as well?
I think because last season obviously we prioritized the league, but then we came quite close to winning away in France a couple of times. Like we weren't far off. And I think this year we've got a better strength and depth as exemplified in the Zebre. So I guess if you kept the same kind of league the priority, I mean, where we are in the league, got a really good chance of getting the playoffs. So I do feel that should be the priority with the start we've had. And I think with our greatest strength and depth, and I think we do have a better chance if we kind of change the team around a little bit. I'm more confident this year that we might sneak those wins that last year we just lost. So I think I would probably do similar to last year, which it seems a bit like of a cop out, but I think based on our squad and like who we've got to play and like players like Stefan Manuel who are like blooded last season, who are a bit more like solid this season or like got more experience and just a greater strength and depth in general. I think we might be able to pip some wins where last year we didn't, and I don't know if we need to really like change our mentality to the Challenge Cup, and then we might progress a bit further. So that's what I'm hoping anyway.
40, I suppose, do you agree, disagree? Maybe the one thing I might say is that Lyon and Perpignan last year will be slightly would be easier fixtures, perhaps, comparatively than Stade and Racing this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. It feels like the Challenge Cup fixtures get harder each year. Especially we must be like I can't remember how it works. We must be a higher seeds judging by where we finished in the league. But it's difficult. Again, I'm relieved that we don't have two away games in France this time round, because I think that was kind of killer last year. But yeah, I feel with these games coming up, you can't really, with the festive derbies after, you can't really rest the big players having, for example, someone like Josh McNally's just had 4 weeks off. He plays one game and then has 2 weeks off. It's kind of, with everything you were saying on the pod about how he wants to kind of play as much as possible. He doesn't like kind of sitting idle. I think there'll be rotation for each game going into these two fixtures. But I do feel like to approach this game on the weekend, when you see kind of how well we did last week with a bit of rotation, if you kind of fill in the ones that were missing, that were unavailable, I think we have a very good squad on paper. And I think it'd be nice to have like a little mix and match of, for example, someone like Steph starting at 12 to kind of build on that little consistency. When he has someone like, for example, Sheedy at 10, it'd be a nice little combination there. So yeah, I think that's kind of the way I'd approach the Stade game.
Steve, if you've got anything to add on what approach you might take to these games?
I think possibly beating Zebre might change the thinking a bit, because just to go back to that game briefly, the reason that's an important win is we're now on 25 points. If you look back at past editions of the URC, to get in the top 8, you need roughly about 50 points. Scarlett's got in with 48 last season. I think that's the lowest anyone's done it on. I think generally you need around 50 points. We're currently on 25, which means that if we win our remaining home games, we're in the playoffs, basically. There's 6 home games left. I think that we don't have to get anything else away from home. And I think that has to put even more focus on those home derby matches. Those are now even bigger because we've given ourselves a good chance of progressing in the league. So that possibly shifts the thinking away from the cup run in Europe, which ideally you'd like to do both. But I'm expecting very much a mix and match team at Stade. I think that if I were picking the team, I might do something like start with a very young team and then have quite an experienced bench, with the thinking that maybe we can turn into a bit of a chuck around and then be 1 or 2 scores away with 20 minutes left, and then try and burgle it by bringing on people like Sheedy. that might be how you approach it. But yeah, I'm expecting a fairly young team over there.
Fraser, a hypothetical, but if I were to offer you right now, definite eighth place or just any sort of URC playoff spot, but you get knocked out in the pool stage of the Challenge Cup, would you take it from me right now if I offered it?
Yeah, I guess I would. I'll shake your hand. Yeah, go on. Okay, done. Thanks.
Is that because we've just never made the playoffs, do we need to shake that off our back, or is it because we started so well in the league and finishing the top region in the league actually matters quite a lot this year?
Well, also, I also think we stand a chance of progressing in the playoffs. I just don't know. I just think we've got a good enough team on like when we have everyone fit to actually make an effort, like not just get a game in the playoffs and be done with it. I mean, ideally a bit higher than eighth, so we get an easier draw or whatever. But I don't know. I feel like we've got the team to challenge some of the bigger teams and get a result. So like it's like if we get in there, it's not just because they're like, oh yeah, we made it to the playoffs. It's like, oh yeah, we could actually push these teams and like maybe get wins and like go further in the playoffs. So I guess that's why I would maybe take that. Whereas the challenge, I mean, I'd love to progress in the Challenge Cup as well. But I think the league is for me would be a priority, and I think we got not a chance of winning it, but yeah, I feel like we can compete with the bigger teams and the better teams based on what I've seen so far this season. So I'd like that opportunity.
I think it's still potentially something that could be levelled at Cardiff that we've not really played anyone yet. Munster away, like aside, we haven't played any of like the top five from last season's URC, for example. Stade may well change things for this weekend's game, but as ever with the French sides, it remains true that their budget is like 10 times like what we're operating off, and that their second team is still very, very expensive in comparison to our entire squad. Is this the first proper test we've had since Munster, do we feel, of like playing a top team?
Yeah, definitely. Like looking through their Wikipedia, some of the players they've got, they're absolutely stacked in some positions. Like, Kerr Barlow's a scrum half that they've got in. They've also got Brad Webber there. So they've got two All Blacks at scrum half. So even if they're playing their second choice scrum half, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I was having a peek through their fixtures as well, and it's the kind of classic French thing of they've won all their home games, and the only away game they've won is against Perpignan, who by the looks of it are having a shocking season, bottom of the league with just the one bonus point. So I feel for that they're probably it'd be interesting to see how they approach things. But yeah, it's definitely kind of the biggest test we've had since Munster. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of team they put out. But you are right, their second team is still going to probably be quite a threatening team. So it'll be a good challenge, I think, to kind of go off what you were saying with if you'd offer eighth place in the league for getting knocked out in the pool stages, I'd definitely take it as well. But I just wanted to add, like, I wouldn't want us to kind of roll over in the Challenge Cup group games. Because, like I said, there are some very good teams there. So as long as there's some sort of competitiveness there, because I don't think we as such rolled over last year, but there were some games there that were probably for the taking in the group stages that we didn't make the most of. So I'd like to see almost an improvement on the kind of competitiveness there in the Challenge Cup group games this year.
And Steve, just generally, Cardiff have got quite a proud history of going to France and playing some big, even pre-European competitions, some big games out there. But especially since European competitions have come in, there's always a good following as well. And it sounds like there'll be plenty of Cardiff fans out in Paris again this weekend. Do the club have a sort of obligation, historic-wise, and to supporters to sort of, even though if they don't pick like the strongest team available, to make sure they're still properly competing out there and not just declaring to a degree?
I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of you want the club to be well thought of outside Wales, I mean, inside Wales will obviously be a start, but outside Wales, these are kind of a shop window. I mean, it would be quite rare for anyone in the French rugby public to see any of our matches, and from the performances of the national side, they'll probably think of all Welsh teams as being an easy beat. So I think that gives some incentive to go over there and at least put on a bit of a show and show what we can do. It all contributes to the reputation of the club.
You shock me that French people don't have Premier Sports. Well, let's move on to team selection to finish the pod then. Bit of some team news that I think some is true and some that I've sort of had to put together to just put parameters on what team we're selecting this weekend. So starting up front, Domachowski appeared to be quite a late withdrawal from the squad last weekend. Cam Tyler-Grocott was initially named in the Rags team to play on Friday. He then disappeared from that and popped up as a travelling reserve in Zebre on Saturday. Doma suffered some sort of foot injury, which doesn't require any surgery, but I think is likely to keep him out for a couple of weeks. So we're going to rule him out. Liam Belcher obviously come back from Wales camp with a neck injury. Still no news on the severity of that yet, but with no news on that, we'll rule him out for now. With Kieran Azarati and Alex Mann, we think the likelihood is that they won't be going to Paris this weekend, having played a lot of rugby in the test window over the last few weeks, so they are likely to have a week off. No news on Falatau still. He's popped up in one or two training videos. It seems to be doing bits by himself. So until we hear that he's definitely in, we'll assume he's out, is sort of the way we've always done it with Falatau since he's been at the club. Johan Mulder continues to be sidelined by his fractured jaw. I think 3 weeks, Van Zyl said last week, so hopefully we'll see him back for the derbies. Ben Thomas, I think, also likely to have a week off after the autumn series. Obviously hasn't played quite as many minutes, but played in 3 of the 4 games, and his partner gave birth to their second child during the test window as well. So it feels a little bit harsh to ask him to go to Paris the weekend after coming out of camp on that front. But we think possibly Danny Southworth will be available, having only played on Saturday a few minutes. Evan Lloyd didn't feature at all, and Max Pearce, the Bath hooker who came in, was only on a 1-game licence, so we assume he's going back with Lloyd coming back in. He did avoid the 0-minute club on loan by about 90 seconds, by the way, if anyone spotted him coming off the bench for the last line out of the game.
He almost got a try as well. It would have been
I did think that would be quite good to have like one touch, one try, basically.
One try in 2 minutes. Yeah, that would be quite something, wouldn't
it? Callum Sheedy as well, likely to come back in. Only got a few minutes off the bench in the final game on the weekend. And then Josh Adams is unsuspended now. Well, assuming that he graduates from Ruck Entry School this week. We haven't heard that he has failed, so we'll make him available. And then one extra that I didn't put on the list, which Fordy raised beforehand. Ben Donnell hobbled off in the first half on Saturday. None of us can figure out what happened. It seemed to happen off camera, away from contact. He had some sort of ankle issue. So we'll rule him out for now on the basis that if it's forced him off there, it's probably not an insignificant injury anyway. But plenty of LA players still to choose from. So, Fraser, coming to you first for the front row with Danny Southworth coming back in, Johan Emmanuel, Rhys Barrett there. Got a choice between Dav Hughes and Ev Lloyd, hooker, and then maybe much of a muchness at a tight head with Sebastian at Wainwright. What would you start and bench with there?
Probably, I guess I'll go Javin Sebastian to start. Again, Sam Wainwright on the bench, I guess, to come on. Hooker, I think you got to give Dav Hughes. If he's fit, it's just he got a hat trick, so this feels a bit harsh to be like, all right, you're on the bench. Although I understand about rotation and needing to keep people fit, but I'd like to see Dav Hughes get another game. And is Ed Burton? What's happened to Ed Burton? Who
Great
is
question.
Ed Burton? Who is he?
Does he exist?
In the fitness update last week, they just had him in the rehab bit still. So I think he's going to be under the Falatau rule until we hear that he is available.
Okay. I guess I'd probably bring Rhys Barrett play, maybe Danny Southworth back in to start. He hasn't played much over the autumn. Well, yeah, he didn't get many minutes, so why not bring him back in?
And then Lloyd, Southworth, and Wainwright. Lloyd, Barrett, and Wainwright, the bench. Is that what we're going for there? Yeah. Second row, 40. I don't know. Like McNally Knott is now the new sort of pending one. Will there have to? There'll have to be some rotation there, presumably, to try and avoid injuries. Thornton is fit. He was a travelling reserve in Parma on the weekend, just wasn't in the 23. Is this the weekend we choose to rotate them, or do we leave McNally and Knott in there for now?
I don't know. I think I'd leave. I've got written down McNally not to start, but yeah, they both played 80 minutes on Saturday, just gone. So I feel like that was just because Donald went off injured early, and he was almost the second row cover. But I think with maybe a game like this on Saturday, try and get Thornton on as early as is either convenient or possible, so that they're not getting flogged for 80 minutes week in, week out, leading up into quite a congested fixture block.
So Thornton 19 jersey for you.
Yeah.
And then back row, Steve. We've got Botham, Basham, Thomas, Lawrence. Basically, I think are the four that would be available there. Which way are you going with them?
I think both of them and Basham definitely. Neither started last week, and I'm sure both would want to start. I'm still thinking we're going to rest players for this game, so I'm thinking perhaps Lucas De La Rua comes in either to start or on the bench. Um, I think Alan Lawrence, although he's probably in the same camp as Josh McNally, in that even if people want to rest him, he's going to refuse by the sounds of what Josh McNally was saying the other week. Because he's, until we know anything more about Fartel, because he's our only fit specialist number 8, I think he's a player we might want to wrap in cotton wool a bit. So I think I'd lean towards Botham 6, Basham 8, Dan Thomas 7, and De La Rua on the bench, I think.
Looks good to me. 9 then, Fraser. Davis started last week. Bevan on the bench. We're not expecting Mulder back. There is Ian Davis as well from Bath, who I wonder if maybe these are the sort of games they've promised Bath that he might get some first team game time in as well. Who would you go start and bench in the scrum half section?
I mean, if we started Aled Davis, or if Ewan Davis was on the bench, I think you'd go with Aled Davis as starter, just as a safe pair of hands, because obviously Ellis Bevan's not been trusted yet still this year, which I mean, being surprising that he hasn't had more game time, to be honest. I know Mulder and Davis have been great, but yeah. But I think it would be Ellis Bevan start, Aled Davis on the bench. I don't think Ewan Davis will get a game. I think they'll stick with that, I think.
So bringing Bevan in with Davis on the bench.
Yeah.
10 then 4D. Sheedy Lloyd. Does Sheedy come straight back in, or Lloyd hold on to it for you?
I think personally I'd bring Sheedy back in. I thought Johan Lloyd played quite well on Saturday, but I felt there was a few times where he came a little bit stuck. And I think if we have some younger players playing in the back line, it'd kind of be a nicer, safer pair of hands to have Sheedy start. And there is an element of me of wondering whether to go for, if you were to go for a 6-2 bench, have Lloyd as the kind of back option on the bench. So yeah, I'd start Sheedy personally.
Steve then into midfield. We got Emmanuel, pretty much the only 12-1 at the moment as we're ruling Ben Thomas out, and then Millard 13. Noticeable that Cornel van Zyl said in press last week that he sees Grady as a winger for now. Not something, but there's Elijah Evans, of course, outside centres, potentially a young player who could get some minutes. Which way would you go there?
Well, there's also Cornel Smith, isn't there?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Who
I
seems
think
to play 12, I think. He officially came on. He blood binned for Millard for a bit, but then Millard came back and Emmanuel went off, I think, in the last few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been signed to sort of play 12 and 13. He seems to be someone who can do that playmaker role and also has plenty of experience at 13, which is hopefully going to make him pretty useful. I think there's going to have to be a bit of a settling in period for him as a new player, getting used to the new system, etc. And that might have to be sped up in as many ways as possible, because he's only been here a short length of time, and we may find ourselves having to use him. So I think this might be a game where he starts at 13, and Millard is rested. Millard is another player I would wrap in cotton wool because he's so important and has a remarkable way of getting injured. And even though he plays through these injuries, I think it's a weekend to look after him and start the South African and see how he goes. With Emmanuel, definitely carry on with Emmanuel.
And then Fraser back three. We've got Bowen and Ewan Stevens, Mason Grady, Cam Winnett, Jacob Beetham also coming back in, of course, from international duty, having not played at all for Wales. I mean, I've forgotten him off my list. He was that he hadn't played at all. And then a certain Lee Halfpenny who continues to hover around, but actually never make a match day 23 at this point. What would your starting trio in the back three be?
I'd probably is Ewan Stevens fit then now? Is he ready?
He was in Parma as a travelling reserve on Saturday, so it seems like it.
Yeah, I'd probably go then. Josh Adams is like a bit of experience maybe on and then Ewan Stevens. Why not? Like give him a run out. He's been out for ages. But yeah, give him a go. And then I mean, Cam Winnett, so he was really good against Zebre, I gotta say. He's so classy as a player. Then maybe go Jacob Beetham if you want to rest Cam Winnett and save him for the Christmas fixtures and stuff like that, I think. And Jacob Beetham's come out of Wales camp, he might have learned a few things or improved in training and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd probably go Beetham at fullback.
It's suddenly a very stacked back three as you sort of plump in all out. I mean, you've picked the Stevens, Adams, Beetham back three, which is a very good back three, and then you could also have a Bowen, Grady, Winnett back three, which is also a very good back three. Like we are not short of options there at all.
I forgot about Grady. Yeah.
We've also forgotten about Halfpenny.
Or you think he's going? These are the games you thought he was going to play, was it?
I reckon Halfpenny will start against Ulster.
Ulster, okay.
I may be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure his first debut came against Ulster because I remember the game and I remember him scoring a try all those years ago and thinking, hey, this kid's quite decent. It would be quite fitting if his second debut also comes against Ulster, and maybe they'll kind of hype that up in the week. That's like a borrow Tony's hat. That's my conspiracy theory for the Ulster game. It's going to be the Halfpenny match.
Ford, you mentioned possible 6-2 bench earlier. Have you got like Lawrence on there instead of another outside back? Is that the way you've gone? Or?
Well, I did have Ben Donnell initially penciled in, so there's a slight issue there. But yeah, I'm not sure. Like it's merely just a suggestion, especially because of kind of playing away in France. And I don't watch Stade Francais all that often, but I'm going to assume naturally they have a massive pack. So I think a 6-2 bench is better. But yeah, I think someone like Lawrence on the bench. I've kind of lost track of, especially my team is, I've got Donnell on the bench, so I've kind of lost track at this point of who's starting and who's still available.
What a 6-2 bench I think would look like would be Lloyd, Barrett, Wainwright, Thornton, Delarue, Lawrence, Aled Davis, and Johan Lloyd would be your 6-2. Any alternative offers for bench makeup? No. Well, forever hold your peace. We've gone 6.
I guess if you were to go 5 forwards, then maybe you could chuck someone like Elijah Evans on the bench.
It'd be interesting. I think it's really difficult to call the backs actually this week because there's a part of you that thinks, right, Grady's just come back from injury, Winnett's just come back from injury, they'll want to play them again. But then there's also a part that says, right, they've just come back from injury, let's not push them immediately. They've had a good run out last week, let's leave them this week and bring them back for that big game against Ulster then as well. So, and the truth of that matter is, there's not really a bad option there, I don't think either. It's in quite a good spot. So, the 23 that we've picked then from 1 to 23, Danny Southworth, David Hughes, Javan Sebastian, Josh McNally, George Knott, James Botham, Dan Thomas, Tane Basham, Ellis Bevan, Callum Sheedy, Ewan Stevens, Steph Emmanuel, Cornell Schmidt, Josh Adams, Jacob Beetham, and the bench of Evan Lloyd, Rhys Barrett, Sam Wainwright, Rory Thornton, Lucas Delarue, Alan Lawrence, Aled Davis, and Johan Lloyd. A pretty decent team. Steve, would you we fancy us to win still on the weekend, or what would you take, I suppose, from Saturday? What's a good result there?
I mean, I would take a game which turns into a bit of a chuck around and we get a couple of bonus points out of it. I think that would be like I'd be now and again. I'm quite happy to see kind of a fun game like that. But I can also see a world where, although Stade Francais are decent, I can see a world where they don't take us entirely seriously and we burgle them with a team like that. I think we're good enough to get a result out there, but don't see why we can't. But yeah, we're back to the good old-fashioned which French team turns up thing.
Fraser, is there a part of us that thinks like win is actually quite important to keep the streak going, or are we sort of thinking the season's long and winding enough that streaks don't matter too much in the long run of things?
I think it definitely contributes in building confidence. I think like wins against, I think Edinburgh, like we're scraping that win was such a massive. It's those all against Connacht, those wins that they kind of snowball and the confidence builds, and they do have an impact. So if we did get a win against Stade Francais, it would be, I think, it would undoubtedly be helpful. But I guess you can compartmentalize it a bit better if it's in Europe. You can be like, right, this is Europe. We're approaching it like this. So maybe you can kind of take it out of the streak in terms of a team, and you can focus on the league is where your streak lies, or where you like really value the wins. But I don't know. Yeah, I think a win would definitely be mentally positive for the team, and obviously the ideal situation if we did burgle them in Paris.
When did we last win 5 in a row in all competitions? Do you have those stats to hand?
I'm not sure I do. I think it was we last won 4 in a row in all competitions in 2018-19, I want to say, which was a run ended by the Scarlets at home that time as well. But yeah, I think. Or was it 2018-19 was 4 league wins, and then 4 in all competitions was 2019-20 potentially, just before COVID hit. We snuck a few where we had like Calvisano in our group and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know about 5 for that. I think that would be a long time ago. I feel like 5 in all competitions.
It might be like the tail end of that last Danny Wilson season when we went on that bit of a league run. Might be as far back as that, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, we
You
did
guys
throw a
started
couple
in-
of games. We threw Judgment Day that year
Oh,
ahead of the
yeah.
final, didn't we? I think we just sort of gave up on that and decided to go hard in Bilbao instead. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. 4D, just on this game, then in context of the wider one, I suppose would we take not winning this weekend but carrying some momentum into a big home win against Ulster then to propel us into the festive period?
Yeah, I think so. I'm thinking if I do manage to find a way to watch this game, I'll be going into the game probably less nervous than I've been for the league games. So yeah, if there's some sort of performance that can kind of get that momentum, kind of there'll be some good matchups on the Stade Francais side where it'd be a good challenge for some of the players with regards to who they come up against. That yeah, they can kind of win their one-to-one duels, get one over on their opposite number. Then yeah, it'd be huge going into the Ulster game and make sure that's a big focus on trying to get a win there.
Good stuff. I've got my weather forecast, so I've brought it up while we've been talking. And I mean, a good workman never blames his tools, but this is terrible. What this is showing me here: sun, rain, cloud. It hasn't got a clue. It could happen in Paris on Saturday, weather-wise and performance-wise. Steve, are you looking at Met Office
I
now?
am looking at the Met Office right now. Yeah, I'll report back in a sec.
And you've got a map behind you, so you can
Yeah,
use
yeah,
it.
Well,
Like,
I got the map out to try to work out where the WRU's 4th team is going to be. Georgia, South Africa, Miami, Wales, who knows?
If Richard Collier keyword pops up behind you now, we'll know who's actually behind all this.
So I've got 80% chance of rain, 13 degrees, but with a bit of sun.
Nobody
Paris
knows.
at 1 o'clock on Saturday. So who the hell knows, really? Doesn't
Anything
seem
could
too much wind. I'm not sure how that would affect tactics for this game, but good to know nonetheless.
Good stuff, right? I think that's us for this week, unless anyone else has got anything in particular to raise. No other business on the question. So, thank you, Fraser.
cheers.
Thank you, 4D.
Thank you.
Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, guys.
We'll be back next week to look back on the Stade game, preview the Ulster game, and pick up any more rumours that come out of the WRU. In the meantime, if you're going out to Paris, enjoy the trip, and thank you for listening.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.